predictions vary pretty dramatically, but it is fair to say that the vast majority of jobs that exist today will not exist in their same format in the next 10 years. And I actually think we have the chance to say within the next 5 years. So let me give an example of, what is a traditional early entry job for a young person to get experience. They might become a retail clerk at a mall, at a store. But today, that job is already dramatically changing. You can walk into that store today, grab your clothes, and you're asked to simply put it in a bin. In that bin, through radio frequency, it automatically determines what the price is of the items. You tap your phone or tap your credit card, and you're out the door. It's most likely that store doesn't even accept cash. And so the opportunity to have retail clerks where young people are learning how to handle customer inquiries or customer challenges or handle money or resolve issues or problems, those jobs have gone. Now you actually have a security guard at the door and that's it, right? So when you look at the dramatic change, it's just starting to accelerate. And this is going to be huge for our young people.
AI has invaded into our life with full force in the past few years, and it has made a big impact on our economy. The jobs that we used to have 10 years ago, we don't have anymore, and this is changing rapidly. And I don't even know how the market is going to look like when our kids grow up. And it can sound scary for us as parents, but it's inevitable. I feel like it's a force that, we either join it or we lose. We cannot just decide not to use AI and we'll be okay, because the whole market is changing. So for me, I like to think about it as an upgrade to the human race. If you think about it, before we had a washing machine, we used to spend hours every day washing our clothes. And then we invented the washing machine, and lo and behold, we can press a button and our clothes are going to be clean. So we could take all that time that we used to spend on washing our clothes and spend it doing something more beneficial for ourselves. It's the same with AI. Instead of spending a lot of time with basic human tasks, we can upgrade our abilities and do something that is more creative. And I think that's actually very exciting. But we need to teach our kids how to use AI so it won't replace their own intelligence, but it will be a tool that they can use in order to bring their ideas and bring their dreams into life. This is the conversation that I'm going to have with Amy Love today. Amy Love is a visionary entrepreneur, Silicon Valley executive, and advocate for the next generation of creators and change makers. She's a Harvard Business School graduate, and she served as Chief Marketing Officer for both a Fortune 500 company and a 5 billion AI unicorn. She's the founder of discoveringai.com. She's also the author of Raising Entrepreneurs, Preparing Kids for Success in the Age of AI, and the creator of AI Irreplaceable, a course designed to develop the traits AI can't automate. Today, we're going to explore together what are the changes that we're going to see in our market in the next 5 to 10 years, why AI is as disruptive as the industrial and internet revolutions, what are the 6 core traits that every child must develop in order to thrive in a tech-driven world, how parents can foster resilience, creativity, and entrepreneurial thinking at home, and we're going to talk about practical strategies to prepare kids for jobs and opportunities that don't even exist yet. This conversation is full of insights, inspiration, and hands-on tools for parents who want to help their kids not just survive, but actually thrive in a world shaped by AI. Discovering AI are hosting a national back-to-school game plan where they're going to turn AI cluelessness and confusion into confidence and clarity. If you want to sign up to that event, you can find the link in the description below. So settle in and let's jump into the conversation with Amy Love. Today I have Amy Love with me, and we're going to discuss her amazing book, Raising Entrepreneurs, Preparing Kids for Success in the Age of AI. And I think this is such an important topic. And I have so many questions to ask you today. So why don't you start by introducing yourself, telling us a little bit who you are and whatever you want to share with us today.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This is such a an important discussion, I feel, for us as parents. And I love working with individuals like yourself that are really committed to helping parents grow and develop and raise the best young people that we can. By way of background, I have a 12-year-old daughter. She serves as a big catalyst for my effort and interest at this stage in my career. But in terms of a background, I've had a varied background. I started my career off with Procter & Gamble, very traditional consumer products, large-scale company. Went back to business school at Harvard Business School, came out, went into consulting. I've been out in Silicon Valley since the late 90s, and I've seen the transformation that tech has done from going from the internet age to mobile to social and now to AI. So I've had the opportunity to be on the forefront of seeing these sorts of transitions through the roles and experiences I've had. This includes I started my own company that I ran for 10 plus years, raised seven figures. I've taken two companies to exits, which in Silicon Valley is an important proof point in terms of where you're trying to take your companies. But I've also had the chance to be the chief marketing officer for a Fortune 500 company, another public company, as well as for a unicorn AI startup company called Samba Nova. So I've had the opportunity to really play in both corporate worlds and entrepreneurial worlds. And that's pretty typical in Silicon Valley, how the two of those merge together and you move fluidly in and out of each of those. But along the way, there's always been this drive and this internal piece inside me around looking to help make the world a better place. And I've had the opportunity to be a CEO of two nonprofits, as well as the work that I'm doing today with Discovering AI. During one of my nonprofits, I actually started a class at Stanford Business School called Entrepreneurship from the Perspective of Women. And that class has been offered now for more than 20 years. And so this has been a long golden thread, I say, through my background and my interest of really looking to think about how can we best equip young people to have thriving and exciting futures ahead of them, both personally and professionally. And today it's really about recognizing this need around AI to bring visibility at a different level.
That's awesome. Wow. So you did many, many things. So tell me more about what discovering AI does, and is that your main focus right now, or are you doing other things in the meantime?
I've fully transitioned into discovering AI. We have a team of people committed to what we call as igniting human potential, because I think that's essential at this stage of transformation that's happening. Because AI can have the potential to just allow people to sit back and seek out answers without taking initiative. And discovering AI is all about how do we ignite the human potential about what are the possibilities of leveraging this amazing technology to drive insights and innovation and empowering people to create unique opportunities for themselves and their families and the economies, not only in the US, but globally.
Okay, so how practically does that look? You have
Yeah.
workshops, you have classes, you work one-on-one with clients.
Perfect. So
What are
yeah,
the
so
services that you give?
yeah, so Discovering AI offers workshops. We also have learning circles. Learning circles are where you come together in a community. We offer education program both on entrepreneurial mindset and AI because it's rapidly changing. That you need constant updating on what is the newest, latest trend, issue, opportunity that's coming forward. We also work with corporate clients to help prepare their employees both personally and professionally to embrace the age of AI. So we do through discoveringai.com our workshops and consulting and coaching practices. And then through discoveringai.org, we actually have our 501c3 nonprofit. And there we provide a variety of free resources to help parents and educators bring the story of discovering AI to their classroom and to their home.
So let's take a step back and look at the bigger
Yeah,
picture for a minute. Um, you express in your book how much AI is a revolution.
yeah.
It's a revolution as big as the industrial revolution or the internet revolution. And I totally resonate with that because I feel like the way our lives looked before AI is going to be completely different and is completely different already than what it was before. So can you just like lay out for us the magnitude of this thing, and what it means in terms of the future of our children, the workplace, and how it's going to look like.
Yes, absolutely. Predictions vary pretty dramatically, but it is fair to say that the vast majority of jobs that exist today will not exist in their same format in the next 10 years. And I actually think we have the chance to say within the next 5 years. So let me give an example of, what is a traditional early entry job for a young person to get experience. They might become a retail clerk at a mall, at a store. But today, that job is already dramatically changing. You can walk into that store today, grab your clothes, and you're asked to simply put it in a bin. In that bin, through radio frequency, it automatically determines what the price is of the items. You tap your phone or tap your credit card, and you're out the door. It's most likely that store doesn't even accept cash. And so the opportunity to have retail clerks where young people are learning how to handle customer inquiries or customer challenges or handle money or resolve issues or problems, those jobs have gone. Now you actually have a security guard at the door and that's it, right? So when you look at the dramatic change, it's just starting to accelerate. And this is going to be huge for our young people because there was a great New York Times op-ed piece that was recently written by one of the executives at LinkedIn. And it talked about how the bottom rung of the career ladder is broken. And it truly is. And the question is, how do our young people get that leap ahead to where they get the experience and the knowledge to be able to move forward? And so when we talk about the implications of this, we're talking about widespread change across all types of jobs and roles. And PwC just came out with a great report that talked about the needs of those jobs that are actually seeing transitions to AI are even accelerating faster about the need for skill set changes. So it's happening at an accelerating rate across the board.
Wow. So what would be the entry jobs then? Like what are kids going to be able to do as they finish high school or college?
Yes. So it's interesting you say that. The big premise of my book is around an entrepreneurial mindset that we as parents must take an intentional approach to build up the entrepreneurial mindset at a very young age with our children so that they can start to get what would have been the skill sets that they would have learned in their first entry level job, that they're getting them through home-based, school-based engagements and opportunities to explore. How do you work through creative ideas? How do you come up with products and solutions that people might want to be interested in buying? How do you look for changing or creating solutions to problems that exist in the world? Those are things you would actually learn whether you realized it or not in those entry level jobs, and you would gain that experience that then as you moved up, you could apply in different ways and then actually train and develop those that are coming up behind you. But that doesn't happen today. So when we think about jobs for our kids coming out of college today, it's really about how can they demonstrate what I talk about are the six traits, and I'm sure we'll get in those into a minute, but talk about the six traits that can they walk in and talk with the employer that they know how to effectively take initiative in the workplace and leverage AI, even if they don't yet have the experience, to know how to ask the right questions to pull the experience from what is now an amazing access to worldwide knowledge, right? Knowledge is now universally accessible to anyone with access to the internet. That does the young person know how to harness that power in an effective way that allows them to bring value to that company? If
Mhm.
they do, then that actually opens up that employers need those types of skill sets more so than a specific, I know how to code, I know how to write a press release, I know how to do X, Y, or Z. Those sorts of progressions, which were much more tied to the Industrial Revolution and how our school system was set up, is no longer the need of companies today.
Yeah. So in a way, what you're saying is that we need to think when we're raising our children, we need to think of them as learning like like first job skills in during their childhood, I want to say. So I'm thinking about how what the school system teaches children
Yep.
today. And it seems like all that information is really outdated nowadays.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, many parents, and including myself, we still have this sentiment. to this type of knowledge. We still feel like our kids need to know how to write well. They need to know how to analyze data. They need to know how to search data. And I feel like it's kind of hard to let go
Yeah.
of teaching them these skills on the one hand, but then on the other hand, I think the kids understand that they don't really need those skills anymore. And Peter Gray, I don't know if you heard about him, but he has a great book which is called Free to Learn, and he talks about how children watch the environment and watch adults, and then they know what they need to learn in order to be successful in life. So I feel like kids are watching and
Yes.
they're understanding, they're getting it because all kids now, many kids now have access to the internet, the AI, and they do use it outside of school, let's say, and they
Yeah.
see that, oh, everything that I'm learning in school is not relevant anymore. So why should I be motivated to learn all those things?
Yeah.
So what do you say about that tension between still wanting our kids to have the skill set to do what AI is doing right now on the one hand, but on the other hand, letting go of that and showing them that okay, all the skill set you already have in the palm of your hands, and showing them how to use that skill set and kind of like upgrading their skill set in a way.
There is so much wrapped into what you just shared, and it's so important to dissect that because these are some of the most challenging questions facing our education system today. And, at least in the United States, we have to kind of take a step back and recognize that we were set up our education system based upon the industrialized revolution. It was very much chain of command. It was very much around rote learning. It was very much around the ability to do repeatable tasks. And as you've said, that is not the world today. However, with 13,000 decentralized school systems, each individually empowered to make decisions based upon state mandates, we are not federally controlled. Even with the president making a executive order around AI, it was simply to actually look at and try and assess what's needed. It's a very different environment than what other countries have. You can look at China and India, but you can even look at Estonia that has mandated federally on down that AI education will be part of K through 12 education from the outset. So the United States is actually what was an advantage for us is now at a disadvantage. Our decentralized model that worked effectively to meet the needs of local environments is now at a disadvantage when we actually need to move quickly with something that is changing so fast in terms of technology and needs. So that's one part. If I take it to the next step, you're absolutely right. And we have actually seen this before when the calculator came out. Um, you know, I remember when that calculator came out and there were kids no longer learning their times tables because it was faster, easier, and more accessible for them to simply just use a $4 calculator to do their math homework. But then they learn later on that actually the ability to train your mind to be able to do those sorts of calculations in your head were actually a huge power boost to your ability to be effective in the workforce. And so it's interesting, even today, my daughter is not allowed to use a calculator in her math classes. She's in sixth grade. And once she gets into seventh and eighth, they'll start to allow it. But schools recognized in this case, it was more important to teach that skill without relying on technology because of the need to understand critical thinking and problem solving. And so part of this question is when we think about AI, where is that balance? And so I do see and understand and appreciate the struggles the schools have, though many schools have found that their answer short term is simply to ban it all. And that is not serving the purpose of helping our kids learn how to effectively ask the right questions in a critical thinking way, in a way that demonstrates digital and technical literacy, in a way that demonstrates that they can problem solve. And so we as a society have to find a way to find that solution between this extreme gap of nothing to using it exclusively and at the expense of actually developing the capabilities of your mind to think independently. And I bring it back even to a company. As I mentioned, I started my career off Procter & Gamble. that company was a promotion from within only company. And that meant you couldn't get promoted until you trained the person behind you to fill your spot. And the reason was is you couldn't just get promoted up because you wouldn't know what that person needed to do. You couldn't be an effective leader if you didn't know that role. And so a bit when you think about AI and learning and school elements, you still need the fundamental baseline knowledge and experience so that you have the knowledge to know whether or not AI is coming back with proper coding, whether or not AI is able to effectively figure out this math calculation or not. So there is that need from the human mind that you still need to be able to solve it and know how to solve it. Yet you want to embrace AI that says, even though I know how to solve it, it takes me much longer to solve it than leveraging AI. So if I know how to solve it, I can see whether or not AI is hallucinating or coming up with the right responses or not. And if I know that, then I can leverage AI to accelerate my problem solving ability to, get humans from Earth to Mars, because the calculations can be done so much faster, the productivity is so much better, the breakthrough is so much better. But we can't take away the importance of the human judgment to ensure that the information is correct.
Okay. So you still need the fundamental skills in school,
Absolutely.
but you do need to integrate the learning about AI and how to use it as a tool. So what would you
Absolutely.
say are the things that, because schools right now, their day is full.
Yeah.
They don't have time to add another subject, I believe, right? I'm personally outside of the school system, so I don't really know exactly how the day looks. But what I understand is that they spend their day learning the old academic
Yeah.
knowledge that they always did. So now you're saying we had to integrate also the AI knowledge. What
Yeah.
is something that they can take out in order to integrate that instead, do you think?
So I believe that the US education system, the public and private education and the traditional school system actually needs to fundamentally transition. Because the challenge with a full school day is that the full school day is set to deliver educational elements at the mid-level at best, if not below. And it is one size fits all education for everyone in that classroom. And whether your classroom has 20 students or 30 or 35, I can guarantee you there is a bell curve distribution about where those kids are landing. But the reality is the school system today with a one teacher, 20 or 30, 35 student mindset, that teacher can only teach one path.
Mhm.
And so how we address this is we actually leverage AI to become the individualized educator, teacher, tutor for every single student to allow them to progress at the rate and the speed equivalent to their base knowledge, their understanding, their growth. And you transition the teacher into a problem solver who can actually coach and develop the kids with the areas that they're either struggling in or where they're really accelerating in and challenging them to think about what they can do even more so to expand their skill sets. Because the reality is, if you haven't experienced or seen something, you don't know where to stretch your mind to. And
Mhm.
that's where teachers can play a huge role in terms of demonstrating and showing kids that are accelerating in math or accelerating in reading or show tremendous creative skills in artwork to challenge them to think about how they can expand their skills rather than waiting for the rest of the class to hopefully catch up to where they are. By the same token, students that might be struggling with spelling or with comprehension or with math. The teacher can specifically work with them at the level of where they are at rather than trying to guess where is the medium or below for each. And that's really where the school systems can change. And so it's a matter of completely rethinking the delivery model around education. Not a one to many, but it's a one to one, leveraging AI with the understanding through testing of where kids are in the curriculum and leveraging the curriculum to help bring them along at an accelerated rate to get them up to grade level, or if they're overperforming, to get them to the AP level. And there's a great school actually in Austin, Texas that does this. It's called the Alpha School. So if you were able to create this sort of momentum, you no longer have to have the same amount of time because everything is tailored to each individual child. And so in there, they're spending 2 to 3 hours a day doing their academic core subjects through learning with AI. And then the rest of the school day is spent allowing the child to explore their own personal interests and areas of excellence. And that's really where, an entrepreneurial mindset perspective comes into play. Whether you're interested in sports or you're interested in starting your own business or you're interested in art or dance, you have the opportunity as a child to really develop your unique qualities while still learning those fundamental skills through a very tailored one-on-one AI tutor type experience with your teachers or simply moderators helping to push you and bring you to the level that you need to be at or where you should aspire to be at.
Okay. So basically, the teacher is as a person who absorb like sees everything from above, but each student has their own private AI tutor in a
Yeah,
way that guides them according to their own accomplishment and learning abilities.
yeah,
So the one red light that is popping in my head right now is that many parents, including myself, we don't want our kids to be on screens all day.
yeah,
We want kids to be interacting in the real world, interacting with real people, and experiencing just real life. Um, and we know, and studies show that, and actually you talk about this in this book. You mentioned the generation glass, which is a generation of babies who were born immersed with screens already, and they experience their world through screens. They don't use the screen; they experience the world through the screen. And I think that's a little bit worrying for us
yeah,
as parents because we know the damages that too much screen time can cause. And experts say that we shouldn't let our kids
yeah,
before age 2 use screens at all, and after that to have it to restrict it and not have them be hours upon hours a day in
yeah.
front of the screen. So how can we navigate that?
Yeah. So I will share, I'm in full agreement with much of what you said specifically and fully, generally, directionally with what you're saying. Because I do talk about the glass generation. And it is, kids are raised now automatically with the screen in their hand. And it is causing huge harm to their own development and long-term ability to interact and engage with individuals. And so the glass generation, while they're digitally literate, they're not digital leaders because they've simply consumed and they're not creating. There's a big difference between digital consumption and digital leadership. And that's an important trait that we need to develop. And, there's nothing to me more challenging than when I walk into a restaurant or I go shopping and I see young people on the devices as a babysitter. And it's a short-term solution for many parents. And I realize we are all as parents stressed, working hard, what have you. But the implications of that little small decision has huge challenges and repercussions later. When you wonder when you have a teenager and they don't want to have a conversation with you and they simply seek their phone or their friends or social media for the solutions, it's rooted, as you said earlier, they're watching us as adults at a very, once they come out of the womb, they look for cues from us. And many people have unfortunately seen the device as a way to soothe a child or allow parent conversations to occur. And then it pays a huge price later on in the child's development. And so I'm a big proponent of ensuring that when we talk about using devices, we learn how to shift from consumption to creation. And you can model that together with your children. So when we talk though about education, I think that's why it's important to say if we go from trying to teach one to many the same material, it takes 2, 3, 4 times as long to do that. But if you have individualized tutoring and you set the development schedule for your child, they can get math done in 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then what do you do with that extra 40 minutes that before you needed to try and get everybody on the same page and repeat what we're doing and half the class is bored and half the class is lost and just in the middle is okay. Maybe it's 40 is lost, 40 is bored, 20% is who you're actually serving. So then that allows schools and others to bring in the need and the requirement for personal engagement and problem solving in team-based settings. And I think a lot of schools have recognized the importance of that. We're seeing more and more team-based projects that aren't focused on the device, and it's about using critical thinking, problem solving, acting out, creating new ways to present solutions. And so the whole school day can be transitioned to where actually the amount of screen time is dramatically reduced because now it's customized and it's allowing the opportunity for that interpersonal development and problem solving with people to come together through projects outside of a digital-based environment.
Mm. Yeah, I love the distinction that you do between using AI or the internet in general, the screen, as something that you consume or something that you create with. You use it as a tool. And I think that's such an important distinction to have because not all use is the same use. If you put your child in front of a screen and he's just like watching mindlessly videos or YouTube videos or shorts that are running one after the other, he's just in a numb state, not really interacting, not doing anything productive with his time. So what you're suggesting is to be mindful about how our children use the screen. And
Yep.
then we can actually limit it to the hours that are recommended because they don't need so much actually screen use in order to get what they need to get done.
And one of the ways that Discovering AI, we're trying to bring that to the forefront is through a very fun way that we run a program every Friday. Your listeners can find it on Facebook at Discovering AI page or on LinkedIn. It's called MindSpark. And it literally is an activity that families can do together over the weekend. It can take as little as 5 minutes, or you can spend a whole half an hour, 45 minutes engaging on it. But it's called MindSpark, and it allows parents and kids to come together and try and use AI and get to the core elements of some of the things that I talk about in the book and that we have as free resources at discoveringai.org around family values and understanding those pieces, which we can talk more about. But it's like, so let's think about your pet. Let's ask AI, describe a little bit about your pet, upload a photo of your pet, and then ask the question of what does your pet do when you're not home? Or what is your pet's superpower? And then allow AI to come up with the storytelling and the creativity. And you and your child get to talk about it and discuss it. And where did they get it right? Where did they get it wrong? Why? What else can we feed it? And it's just that interaction of no longer simply consuming, but you're creating with AI the story. Another way we do it is take a picture of anything in your home and say, what does this piece of art say? And allow it. And you're like, well, I took a picture once of my sock. And it came up. I actually happen to wear a lot of patterned socks that really speak to my personality. And it totally nailed my personality in terms of what this was. And it's just a really funny, different way to create that mind spark. And it's getting parents and kids to engage with technology together in a fun way that is actually fully disguised as learning because of all of the issues that come up that you ask about it. What was right? What was wrong? What was biased? What wasn't? Why did it make the decisions that it did? How did it pull? And how did it get me so correct? Like you can also ask it about your personality. How did it nail me so well? Well, it's the opportunity to talk about that this is a learning model that takes the masses and it can get directionally 80% probably right, but we're all unique individuals. So how do we get it trained on the unique parts of our 20% that make us special, right? So, these are ways in which parents can utilize tools in a very easy way that just incorporates into your daily life over the dinner table or while you're driving to a sports practice that you can actually play this. And I actually happen to be on the board for the Girl Scouts of Northern California, and I'm also a troop leader. I do this oftentimes when we're on a long drive with our Girl Scout troop. I rather than them simply being on their phones and playing games, we start to use some of our mind spark activities. And it's amazing to hear how the girls get so excited in the discussions and the topics that come up. And so this is how you can use technology to help our young people grow.
Mm. Yeah, and I think this is so crucial, this point, because I think generally what's happening right now is that there is this separation between the parents and the kids because the kids know much better how to use the technological tools than the parents. And parents, instead of trying to communicate around the tools, are just disconnected from it and maybe even very fearful from it. So I think it's so important and so crucial to have those conversations around the technology and use the technology together with a child in order to talk about, in order to instill that critical thinking around the technology, not just use it blindlessly, but
Yep.
the parent showing the child what it does, what it cannot do, and asking the right questions. And also instilling those family values because AI in and of itself is valueless, right? It doesn't have any value, it doesn't have any morals. So it's important for us as parents to know how to pass on our values to our children because if we don't do that, and that's something that I talk a lot about, if we don't pass on our values to our children, they're going to be influenced by different influencers, by their peers, by social media, and things that basically we don't know where their values are going to go. So I think the value-based conversation around AI is so crucial
Yeah.
with
You
this.
hit on two really important topics there, and I'd love to attack both of those if I could. The first one is really around this difference of where parents and kids are in terms of their evolution. As parents historically, we've used to be having the experience and the skill set and the knowledge, and then we train and bring our children along. The reality is today, technology is changing so fast that the parents and the kids are at best together, or as you said, the kids are ahead. And this is where, as parents, there's going to create that huge divide that you're talking about. So it's really important that parents and kids learn and grow together. And that's actually a big premise that I talk about in the book, is the need to come together and learn this skill and this technology together. And oftentimes the analogy I like to give is we're in a very different world. If you're thinking that your kid is going to be driving soon, would you just hand off the keys to your kid and say, go drive it? That vehicle has the chance to do a lot of good and also a lot of harm. If you think about AI, it has the potential to do a lot of good and a lot of harm. And we are handing off, we certainly did with social, the keys to social and the keys to AI and say, just go drive. But they don't have the maturity or the experience yet to know. And experience is really important to know what can happen or how to use it to your advantage. And so that's why, when you get your driver's license, you've already taken a permit, you've taken a written test, your parents have either taken you out to practice driving or they've paid for a course for you to go take driving lessons. And then once you get your license, there's restrictions to how often you can use it, what times of the day, et cetera, before you move on. We need to think about that very similarly with AI. The difference is parents know how to drive and they can actually train their kids. But here with AI, they can't advocate responsibility of this to someone else. They've actually got to be learning it with their kids simultaneously and putting in place the family values. So if I move then to your family values piece, that is essential. And I say family values for a word that has become somewhat polarized from a politics standpoint, and it has nothing to do with politics. Family values are at the heart of the family-centered activities, right? And this is, what are your family values around please and thank you? And do you push your seat in? Do you hold a door open? Do you use a napkin? Do you go into a store and take something without paying for it? Those same things can come into play when you think about AI. What does it mean when you ask a question or you create art that's leveraging, what are the ethics behind it of work that others have created? What about music when you seek to create music? What about it when you're actually taking the shortcut to do your math homework and you're just getting the answers and you're writing down the problems, but you haven't learned it yourself? Is that lying? Is that cheating? Well, guess what? For some families, their family values are, that's perfectly fine. You're getting ahead. You don't need to know it anyway. If that's your family values, at least have that conversation. In other families, no, that's cheating. You're not allowed to do that. You need to learn it on your own. And then there's a whole lot of families in between. There's no right or wrong way. It is a recognition that family values are unique to your own core, your own four walls. And so it's important to have those conversations, though, because absent that, the children are going to be influenced by others as to what are the values that they're going to bring into play with technology. And as parents, this is one of the most fundamental pieces of our responsibility in terms of raising young people to be great contributors to society is to bring forth the values that we'd like to see them demonstrate as they grow and mature into adults.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the example that you gave with social media is so crucial because, as you said, we just gave away social media to our children and we know the damages that it has done. And Jonathan Haidt talks a lot about the damages, especially for teenagers, especially for teen girls. And I
Yes.
think that we need to learn from that in handing away and not hand away that tool to our children so easily without training them, without being with them while they're using it. But what do you say to parents that are listening to us right now and feeling so overwhelmed because, they have so much on their plate as it is right now, and they don't have time to spend because screen time for parents, it's time where they have quiet and they can do their things, and then the kids are occupied. So what do you say to parents about that?
I like to talk with parents about it, of saying, think about it from the standpoint of you're taking the approach of a short-term gain that is going to have lifelong implications. And so it is our responsibility as parents to be highly intentional. And that is really a big part of what I'm pushing, and more so than ever now, because we cannot advocate the responsibility around technology and AI to the schools because we know they're not prepared to actually develop that. But I understand parents are busy. I'm a single mom. I've been a chief marketing officer. I've had au pairs. I've had nannies. I am trying to be actively engaged in my daughter's life. It is always about trade-offs. And I love the saying that, days are long, but years are short. And I think sometimes that's just important to remember that this is just a phase in our lifespan. And the priorities during this phase are likely different than they were pre-children or once they're in high school or beyond, right? And so the reality is, the hardest job you'll ever love, it's not the Peace Corps, it's being a parent. It is absolutely the hardest job you'll ever love. I love being a parent, but it does come with the need to do things differently than when I was not a parent. And so when I think about how to help parents, though, it's to say, okay, how do we make it easier for them to engage with their children in a meaningful way? And this is where, you have the question to say, do you hand over the digital device at the table, or at the outset, do you hand them a children's book? I'm going to show my Raising Entrepreneur. I don't think young people are reading this book, but the reality is you can make choices. And if you look at young children, if you hand them a digital device, or you hand them a child's book, or you hand them a favorite stuffy, or you hand them a transformer toy doll that they can change and use their creativity to see it turn into a car versus a monster. And the trick is when that happens, have the parent engage in the conversation with them. You can be having dinner conversation with your spouse, and instead of handing the phone over, have the child have the book or have the child have the transformer. And then every once in a while, you just pop over and you say, so what's your transformer creating today? Or what world is there saving? They'll say a few things and they're like, okay, great. Why don't you go off and figure out how he's going to save Mars? And then the kid's creativity is going, and you're back to being able to have your conversation. Or they're reading the book. You're like, hey, what did you think of the story? They'll tell you what it is. And then you say, so why don't you think about if you were to write a story, what would Winnie the Pooh do? Right? What would you like Winnie the Pooh to do? And let their creativity start to go. So I think it's a reality check to say it's not perfect. We're all busy. We're tired. We're working full time. We're trying to put food on the table. But there is that need to be intentional and to think about, yeah, I can give the device and they're totally quiet, that they're disconnected, but it plays a huge price when they're teenagers and I want to have a conversation with them and they're never going to reach out to me. Versus saying, you know what, I don't have to be 100% fully focused on them. I can still talk to my spouse at the dinner, but I can spend 10, 15, 20% engaging in a creative dialogue that allows them then to keep going and allow me to have that conversation. That's part of what intentional parenting is really about. And I just really underscore that, days can be long, but years are very short.
Yeah.
And this is our responsibility, along with, earning an income to take care of our family, to prepare outstanding young people to be, high contributing, functioning individuals in society moving forward. And that's really our biggest legacy.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And I think that thinking about it more as quality, less quantity, because we don't really need more time in the day to do this. We just need to be more intentional with the time that we have. So it can be like when we're driving them somewhere, instead of being each one on their in their own world or having our kids with their device in the back seat, we can have a conversation during the drive. So it's small things like that. It's not really about adding more to your day, but being more intentional about how you spend your time and how you interact during that time.
I talk about, well, my book is called Raising Entrepreneurs. I'm not looking for everyone to become an entrepreneur. It's about an entrepreneurial mindset. So it's raising entrepreneurs, preparing kids for success in the age of AI because it's about a mindset. And that mindset starts at the earliest age. It's amazing when you think about how much young people grow from 1 to 6. Ideally, you start it very early, but the reality of an entrepreneurial mindset, you can teach that at any age. Even as an adult, you can learn an entrepreneurial mindset. The reality is, how do you think about just if you just think about the 6 traits, right? One of the traits is adaptability and resilience. Let's say your kids are in the shopping cart and you're driving down Costco and you talk about with them, you know what? I really wanted to get that bag of those Kettle Himalayan sea salt chips today. If anyone's ever had them at Costco, they're amazing. My daughter and I decide not to bring them into the house because we can't stop eating them. But let's say we've got a party and we need to buy those, and we walk down the grocery and they don't have them. It's a perfect chance to say, "Oh my gosh, to your child, what do we do? They don't have the chips. How are we going to be adaptable?" And then you just start to have these conversations. If you as an adult understand the 6 traits of an entrepreneurial mindset, it's the easiest way to just bring it into the daily life, right? And you think about, so we need to be adaptable. What do we want to try? Do we want to try the new, lime-based tortilla chips today? What do we think people will say? And you start to have these conversations and you just start to weave it into what you're trying to do. This is where the mindset matters because when you think about knowledge being universally accessible to all, it is the ability to think differently, to know how to leverage technology, know how to leverage AI in a way that's going to allow you to problem solve or to be innovative or creative or to be able to know how to interact with people so that when something doesn't go right in the work environment, do you have enough emotional intelligence and leadership skills and ability to help them through that problem? Because guess what? As a young child, you learned adaptability and resilience over the fact that you didn't get the potato chips you wanted. As funny as it may sound, it's these little environments and these little moments that are repeated and trained in the mind from a very early age that just becomes second nature if you bring in an entrepreneurial mindset. And that's one of the things that has set this country apart. This country is known for its entrepreneurial mindset, whether you do it as an intrapreneur inside of a company or an entrepreneur on your own. Anytime you, in your role, choose to try and think about how can you solve a problem differently, you are applying an entrepreneurial mindset. And that is something sometimes, well, I'm not going to be that next tech Silicon Valley entrepreneur. That's not what we're talking about. It's like, have you trained your children and your own mind to think about how you can take initiative, how you can look to not wait to be told what to do, but to look to how to leverage AI and technology to help you solve things in a new way. When you do that, you bring so much value to the table. And that is really the opportunity here for how do we help this country maintain its competitive edge on a global stage? It's going to be how can we find new ways to be innovative and creative and develop solutions and products and services that are going to address climate change or are going to address the issues of interspace travel or going to solve issues around cancer. It is going to be those entrepreneurial mindsets that can be seeded at any age, but I encourage parents to think about, especially new ones, to start bringing them in at the base level to start having those conversations.
Yeah, so I want to break down these skills that you talk about, the entrepreneur mindset. So we have adaptability and resilience, thriving in a world of constant change. We have critical thinking and problem solving, the power of asking the right questions. We have creativity and innovation, doing what AI cannot. Emotional intelligence and leadership, the human advantage. Technological fluency and digital literacy, knowing how to use AI wisely. Initiative and entrepreneurial mindset, creating opportunities instead of waiting for them. So, how practically, and you do address this in this book in a very practical way, but if you can give us maybe a few examples of how practically we can help our kids uh, acquire this skill set.
Certainly. So, these six traits can be brought out in a daily basis. I have the traits up on the wall, and it's a way for me to just constantly think about, all right, which of these traits do we want to build upon today and drive? But I'll give an example of sometimes it's really amazing to see that your kids may have this already innately in them, and sometimes we actually squash it. And so the question is, how do we not squash it? An example I'll give is my daughter used to love to read the Maisie books, and one of the Maisie's books was around Maisie's lemonade stand. And so at 4, my daughter wanted to do a lemonade stand. And the question is, at 4, there's a lot of learning that needs to occur. I could have squeezed, we had a lemon tree. We're in California with tons of lemon trees. I could have squeezed the lemons. I could have made it all 4, but it was very intentional that even at 4, I was going to have her actually squeeze the lemons and create the product. It was fine that it took longer. It wasn't about how much money we were going to work, but I was extremely intentional around ensuring that she was learning through the process. And so this is critical thinking. This is problem solving. When she's first starting to squeeze the lemon, it's flying off everywhere and the seeds are going everywhere and she's getting her hands all dirty. So we needed to be adaptable. We had to be resilient and we had to go through it. It's just learning those processes. And then I took pictures along the way so that when she wanted to create her poster, there was a picture of her actually trying to do it. And so then her customers are like, wow, your 4-year-old actually did this. So then she started to hear the reinforcement with it. But then this was the really funny part. And as I mentioned, I've been a chief marketing officer. So I think I know marketing pretty well. When we were doing the poster, she wanted to write on there that we were going to give away free dog and cat treats at this table. And I almost stopped dead in my tracks of like, cat treats? You got to be kidding me. Like, Maddie, no one's walking their cat. But I didn't because that wasn't what it wasn't about. It wasn't about me being right. But guess what? I wasn't right. But at the time, I'm thinking this is about me being right. No one's going to walk their cat. She wanted to put on there that we're going to give away free and dog and cat treats because in our neighborhood, a lot of people walk their pets. And so lo and behold, we set up her lemonade stand. And cat lovers saw that it said free cat treats, even though they weren't walking their cat. They're like, oh my gosh, you included my pet? You included my cat? And so they started to give her more donations for the lemonade. So when you think about, creativity and innovation, at the earliest age, she had a very creative and innovative way to connect with her customers, which is part of emotional intelligence and leadership. It exists in our young people, but so often we squash it because of our experience says something else.
Mhm.
And so when I talk about how we do this, it's at the most basic level of when your child demonstrates something they're interested in. They're really interested into Minecraft, or they're very interested into Transformers, or they're very interested in their Hot Wheels. Maybe talk with them about, so what do you think we could do about it? Do you want to invite your friends over and do you want to create a contest? It's not about money, but they're going to start doing a lot of entrepreneurial thinking. And guess what? You're going to keep them really busy for 3 or 4 hours as they're going to be thinking through how can they create a race or create a track that they can invite their friends over to do their Hot Wheels, right? And then they can have some prizes or some trophies. There are so many ways in which we can foster this entrepreneurial mindset in play without using digital devices that allow them then to take that forward in a digital world when the time is right.
Yeah. What you're describing really reminds me of unschooling. So in homeschooling, there is a variety of ways to do it
Yep.
through school at home to unschooling. And the unschooling way really says to facilitate our children's interests, basically, and have all the learning around their interest, or most of the learning around their interest. Yeah, so I think it's really that mindset is really important and crucial in the times that we are right now. And also balance it with the fundamental skills that they need that we talked about in the beginning.
They still need to learn their times tables. They need to
Exactly.
know that. They need to know how to write sentences. One of the most important things in AI when you move forward is knowing how to write the right prompts, knowing how to write the right questions. That's essential, thinking, critical thinking, as well as, language knowledge and understanding and words and everything else. But you can do it in a way that is really connected to the individual child.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really want to encourage parents to either get this book because it's full of good resources and good ideas of how we can even start this conversation and what are the tools that we can use with our children. And then also the websites that you mentioned, please share them again if people want to reach out and just learn more from you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. The book is available on Amazon, both in Kindle format as well as in the print edition. They can get free resources around family AI values and opening up those conversations at discoveringai.org. And you can also look at both free paid workshops and our learning circles, as well as custom workshops for corporations at discoveringai.com. We're really about igniting human potential, and it takes a village, as they say, to make this movement and ensure that we're prepared to help our young people thrive in the age of AI. And it's a whole new world. And so it will take all of us working together to make that happen.
Yes. Thank you so much for all the information that you gave us and all the information that you have online, free for everybody to just have. And yeah, and I thank you so much for our conversation, Amy. It was lovely and very insightful.
Thank you so much, Efred. It's a pleasure. And I really applaud the work that you're doing as well, not only with homeschooling, but in general, helping parents understand and see more access and insights to the knowledge that's out there. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.